My name is Gowthaman, and we set up a company called Aqiliz in Singapore. Probably the first company from this part of the world setting up a data clean room. It's an emerging field right now. Totally, I would say there are 7, 8 companies right now globally talking about this topic. It's an interesting facet that's coming out in front of us. So let me use this next 30 minutes to talk about it. Okay, so just raise of hands. How many of you have actually read the terms and conditions before saying yes when any of the websites ask you to give your data? That's the point I'm trying to talk about today. We are actually freely giving our data, and whenever we log into a website, accept all cookies. We just press the button, and our data is up in the internet space today. And that's the context. So privacy is actually a very personal thing, right? I think the industry here talked a lot about cybersecurity and other industrial relations, but I'm going to talk about things that are very, very personal to all of us. Your data, your email address, your mobile number, what happens to it today, and what's the trend that is happening to the part of the world, okay? So a little bit of story. It's important to set this context right on this. Actually, who runs the World Wide Web? The reality is no one. Like somebody was talking about it earlier. There is no one single organization that is actually running the World Wide Web. Just 30 years back, in 1989, was the first time when Tim Berners-Lee set up something called as the W3C, and that had 4 nodes in the US, and that controlled the World Wide Web 30 years back. And only in 1984, 2 more countries joined. And India was not even in the picture at this point in time. And Europe joined in 1995, Japan joined in 1996, and in between, we already started using the word Web 2, when Web 1 is still not even under control. Okay? And Apple launched the smartphone technology around 2007. And most important thing is, China joined the World Wide Web only in 2013, just 10 years back. And in between, we already launched Web 3. But the reality is, only in 2023, this year, World Wide Web is a truly non-profit organization where some standards are just being set up. So your data on the internet is under nobody's control today. I think that's the context which I think we all should be completely aware of it. So in between, what has happened is we give our data, internet reads it, somebody else writes it, now you can create it. We're already talking about wallets and other stuff that is going on in the world without anybody controlling it or there's any ownership at this point in time. That's the most important context that I want to set it up. So how did we get here? 3 key milestones which I wanted to set it up. The first thing is we all know about the dot-com boom and the bust. I went through this in my past life. Internet essentially is a World Wide Web built, funded totally by advertising. If there are no ads, there is no internet. Because it's advertising, because we all log into the internet, somebody else counts your eyeballs and says, hey, so many people are coming to the website, so let me put some ads there, and those ads actually funds the website. If there are no advertising, the website doesn't run, then there is no internet. So the first point I wanted to really highlight to you today is it's the advertising that runs the World Wide Web without any ownership. And that is across the countries and respective markets. And I'm introducing another word called value exchange because that's the way in which advertising is running. Your data is free. I log into Facebook. I don't pay any money. I happily post pictures. I put some likes. I'm very happy when many people like it. And I'm sad when nobody likes it. I put more pictures there. And I talk about everything around myself. Only because there is a free platform where I have got a sadistic pleasure of watching someone liking me. That's the net today, right? Search engine is the same. I search, log in happily, freely. I'm not paying any money. Because somebody else is making money on your search behavior. They see you, 100 people search for this keyword, an ad pops up there to say, hey, everybody likes this, so let me put an ad there. So that's the value exchange of your data in return on the website on which the entire industry is being built today. But the world is catching up. That's the third point I want to talk about, which is called data protection today. 2003 and 4, the first time when the European Union woke up, they launched GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation. Those key words start coming up today about privacy, protection of data, rights of usage, so on and so forth. So we are at this point today. India is going to release their personal data protection bill anytime in this session of the parliament. Indonesia is now coming up next. Even in the US, despite all these things, it's still California state that has got regulations. It's not even beyond California state. US is still fighting it out to get their own regulations ready. So we're still not protected. We are happily been giving our data out, right? So keep these three things in mind. It's advertising that funds the internet. Your data is being used for your own self, and world is still not get protected. So that's the context in which I want to talk about the clean rooms in which the world is getting towards. The new word is, the new terminology we all call this is called as PETs. Data clean room is part of what they call as a privacy enhancing technology. And three words are very important for you to keep in mind. One is, how do we minimize your data that's being used? Regulations are focusing on this. How do you maximize security? And how do we ensure that your data is powerful and is under your control? That is, empower, protect, and processing of information. That's where the entire regulations is at this point in time, focusing on private PETs, allow online users to give their own data safely and securely. And I'm going to talk about the question about, is data clean room a hyper reality, or what actually is happening in the PETs technology, okay? So this entire approach of possession, protection, and empowerment has got different complications in this world today. Because there are certain industries that are very, very complex. Certain is very, very simple. And I think this is a fantastic chart. I've kept the source every time I picked up something from, put this point in mind. Marketing, where I belong to, I've been an advertising professional for 30 years, is the most complex one today in managing information. Finance is slightly less complex, and certain industries are equally very, very clear to manage. I think we talked about healthcare today. We talked about AI Shield, and we talked about metaverse. We talked about AI and HR. Different industries are struggling to find the way in which these data sets can be used or protected, right? In my view, are structured as three big challenges. One is, how are these data sets kept and maintained by the industries? We're still extremely chaotic. I mean, the entire industry is surveying because each of them have their own taxonomy. There is no one consistent approach in what we are doing. Taxonomy is a very big challenge today. And the number of people in the supply chain in every single industry, at least 8, 9 of them, and the handshake between two partners in the same supply chain is not very, very clear. So there's a loss in information and loss in protection as well. And price premium for privacy. How, if I say today that from tomorrow morning onwards, you'll have to pay $9 a month for Facebook, how many of you will still continue to use Facebook? Or if you have to say that, no, login for $4.99 for search. What's the price premium for us in the industry today to say, I will not use the internet when I'm going to be paid for? That's the question which everybody is now trying to sort it out. So these are three broad factors. And I'm going to bring it to life from our industry, where I'm very comfortable with. It's some of the terms are slightly heavy for you. Do not worry about it, but put yourself in the shoes of a consumer. You see ads on YouTube, you see ads on Facebook or Google. What happens in that case, right? So there are two sides of the coin. There are advertisers and there are consumers. Everybody today is in a mad rush towards getting what they call as first-party data. Your consumer's data, everybody wants to maintain it. Whether it is banks, financial institutions, or any consumer product brands, or let's say CPG customers, or everybody now wants to keep a data set of their customers, not just the banks today. And everyone wants to maintain it in their own data lake, so that it's protected and kept. And they have their email address, phone numbers, like the way if you have signed up for a telco, your telco maintains your database in their own CRM. So they know you very well, they know your phone numbers and email address, they exactly know what you do, what kind of programs you watch, where do you go, what you do, what you buy, they have the information with them. And similarly, every time you log into any websites, that particular website owns it. For example, if you're logging into a publications website, there is a tracker, what they call as the cookies today, right? It tracks you, the time you spent on that website, what kind of content you have watched, so they can come back to you and say, hey, I saw you watching this program yesterday, so I'm recommending something else to you today. So everybody now maintains a record of what you do, and that gets maintained in their own data lake, and that's being used and harvested for further communication to you, right? So our data, let's say me as Gowthaman, I have said yes to my telco operator. I have said yes to my OTT platforms. I have said yes to my Facebook and my search accounts. I have said yes to Ola, Uber. I have said yes to my Grab. And I have said yes to probably 30, 40 applications today. So totally, my data is with 40, 50 companies, and they know my email number and phone number and addresses, and they triangulate with each other because they share data with each other. That's how their business is done. So today, if you look at it for an Apple phone, IDFA regulation says, ask app not to track. So you have a right to prevent one app on your phone to stop tracking another app on your own phone. That's because that's the way privacy is being protected today, what they call as a consent system. The reason why I'm talking about all this is every single brand now wants to know your phone number and email address to talk to you. Otherwise, they can't reach you today. And that's where the data clean room as a proposition comes in today. So in an advertising point of view, there are more than 15 partners in the supply chain trying to track and advertise for you. So there are three key rules that comes into managing this. One of the key techniques that is prevalent, which is globally now everybody is trying to do it, is what they call as differential privacy. What it means is that if there are 10 phone numbers in a database, and if I have to say find gman@gmail.com from this database, when you ask for it, it automatically adds a distortion in the query. That every time it won't return Gman, only 2 out of 10 times it might return Gman because it is the privacy protection and algorithm that is being set as a standard to say you are not supposed to be traceable back when you query. So 10 times a query for gman@gmail.com, it will only result or return 8 times. There is a 20% noise or a distortion or an error that comes into this. That's being protected as one of those privacy-enhancing technologies where differentially private query to protect it. The second one is what they call as key anonymity, which is to say that I will not return to you at gman@gmail.com. I'll only say that Gman normally watches this kind of a movie. So whenever Rajnikant movies are queried, Gman will come up because my behavior is tracked and not my identity, so that it is protected in a particular manner. Or we are also now moving towards a big one called homomorphic encryption, where it is translated into a SHA-256 code, and you don't get your email address, but you get a code that can only be read with your key to access the query. So these are three broad technologies that is coming up today, and regulators are insisting that every single internet intermediary should apply this going forward when the regulations come at play. I will skip this slide. I'll come to the most important part today is the way these data clean rooms are being structured. So if 3 companies wants to share data, like we talked about it, right? Ask app not to track. Let's say in your phone, your Ola app and your Airtel app or your Z5 app, they need to talk to each other. They will now have to use a clean room because it cannot go through directly. The Z or one of the app will have to have a data sharing agreement with another app. The data will have to go through a particular encryption technologies of protecting what I talked about as 3 techniques, and it sits in a central server, and through which they can exchange information with each other and then use it for whatever activation they want to do there. So the clean room as an approach will eventually become table stakes, in my view, not now or maybe 3-4 years down the line, when every single company which owns the data will have to partner with another company through a data sharing agreement, and there are some techniques that needs to be followed to collaborate with each other. So that's what we have set it up as a business. I don't want to talk about our company. But what is important is this. Okay, this I've sort of summarized personal data protection bill that is from India, that is under to be tabled, and what they say, what they see they should be doing from an Indian market point of view. Three key identifications. One is all of us are now called data principals. Your data, your phone number, your email address needs to be with you. You should own it. And any company that owns it or processes it, it's called as data fiduciary. I put some names there. You can call it Google, Amazon, Apple, any of the publications or app stores are all fiduciaries. They have a central responsibility to ensure that they maintain your database in a particular manner. And you as a consumer, as a principal, have every right to ask that fiduciary, what have you done with my data? And it is the responsibility to give it to you that, hey, dear Jiman, you have given me consent. I was tracking you yesterday, and I found you on this particular website, and I have served an ad for you. It is the responsibility to maintain that record and give it to you upon your request. That is your RTI, your right to ask. And you have every right to tell that company that release or delete this from today. I don't want you to use my information any further. And you have to prove to me that my data is not with you from tomorrow. Right to erase, right to protect, and right to ask is what the data protection bill insists as a regulation. It is available already in GDPR in European Union. And the proof is that every 3 months, Facebook pays $150 million fines. That's only for this, because every time somebody questions them, they fail in that and responsibility of providing this information. So they fail and they give the fine, they continue with it. But you can't be doing this every time in every part of the world, right? In India, the fines, they're putting around 250 crores for every instance. So not many people can afford to pay that fine. So we are now getting ready for a world where fiduciaries, when they maintain your database, what they call as record of processing of activities. You have to maintain a record of what's been done with your data, and they have to provide it. So clean rooms are now seen